Okay, so I was asked to show how to do a VirtualBox with Windows 7. So it's the same thing. You go ahead and you download your VirtualBox for Windows host, because that's what I'm on. If you were on a Macintosh, you download that one. Linux, I don't know if there's even a Solaris host out there. If you want to download the extension packs, you can do it there. So I went ahead and I've already pre-downloaded this, and you just, again, like anything else, you just double-click on VirtualBox, and then kind of let it do its own thing. Give it a minute. And then you should hit UAC here in just a second while it tries to figure out what it wants to do. And then you just want to run it as always. And then you go next. You want all the stuff that it comes with. Alright, and then you just want to do that. Warning, network interfaces will reset, and go ahead and install. And it really will take several minutes to do this. It kind of has to go through its process, and it's going to ask you all sorts of questions as you kind of go along with this. So yes, we do want this thing to make hard drive on the computer. So it goes ahead and does its bit. And again, I'm installing this on a Windows 7 box, and I'm going to do a Windows 7 VirtualBox. If you wanted to do like Windows 2008 or anything else like that, basically the same steps applies for anything that has to do with Windows. And then we can just kind of go from there. We do want to install the serial bus. So again, anything it wants to install, just let it install it. It's not a huge rocket science. So yes, we do want to do that. Anything it wants, just let it have it, because if you say no, then something won't work right. Oh, it's little flashy thingies there. Yes, we do want to do that. So network adapters, again, it's just go through and let it do everything that it needs to do. You don't want to get in the way of saying no to something, because then it will probably not work the way that you want it to work. And then once it's done, you're pretty much so good to go. And then that goes ahead and it does its bit. And it should come up here running here in a little bit. Alright, so we want to go new. And we want to make Windows 7 box, Windows 7. We go next. And I'm going to go ahead and bounce this because it's a Windows box. I'm going to go ahead and give it just about 1 gig, so 1024 should work here, or close to it. And we want to create the virtual hard drive now, virtual size 25 gigs. That's okay if you've got it. We're just going to do a VirtualBox disk image. If you need to move it to something else, if you want to move it to like VMware Player or something else, do a VMDK, right? But if you're going to stick only in VirtualBox, you can just do a straight old VDI. And then we want it to be dynamically allocated, so sometimes it can be a little bit bigger. And then we're just going to call it Win7, right? And we'll give it 25 gigabits. And then it goes ahead and does its thing. Then, you know, if we need to, we can go into settings, so we can do our general settings, advanced, shared clipboard. If we want to do bidirectional, drag and drop, we can do that. Mini toolbar, we can show that at the top of the screen. For the system, we can tell it what it wants to do. Boot order, floppy CD-ROM, hard disk, enable all this other good stuff. We don't really need that. Processor, it's just going to take up 1 CPU. And go ahead and use what you can. Display, how much display memory I want to have, how much storage it's going to take, whether I want to use audio or not. The same thing as network. Again, leave it as NAT. The only time you're going to want to use bridge is if you're going to want to actually access this image from outside, so like you're doing an IIS server or something, or something else. If you want to enable serial ports, you can do that. COM1. Alright, USB, enable USB controllers, so you can actually go ahead and do that. And then if you want to do any shared folders on this, alright, so you can do folder path, other, and let's just do it to my desktop, folder name desktop, and then we can just auto mount that as we kind of go through. And then we go OK, and then we can go start. okay. Host drive, because again I have my little Windows 7 disk in the hard drive or in the CD-ROM. So then it should go through and start doing its thing. Alright, so yep, okay. So then we go, okay, Windows is loading its files. And we just kind of need to let it do its thing. Windows will take probably about an hour to install, so, well, depending. It all depends on how good your system is that you're loading this on. This is kind of an underpowered system, so it will look at it. Windows failed to start. Reason hard region might not be cause problem. Insert your Windows installation disk and restart your computer. Okay, so if you see this happened, right? Windows failed to start. Reason hard might be. Maybe I did something stupid, so we want to power off the machine.
Right, just in case I did something stupid, if we go back in settings, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take that out just in case I don't need it. Anything else I changed, let's just not do that. Network, NAT, Windows, storage, display, system. Okay, so just in case I did something screwy in here and I didn't want to do it right off the bat, and then we can go ahead and try to do this thing again and see what we've got. And go okay. And let's see if maybe my disk is bad, and if my disk is bad, then we can go through and get a different disk. Because sometimes good disks go bad. So we'll just try that as it loads up its files and see if we get air out or not. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and assume that my disk is bad, so we'll start off on this again and see if I can go find a different one. Okay, that looks like it got it. So it was just a bad disk. So we're going to do English, keyboard method, input is that. So we'll just go ahead and we'll install now. So again, sometimes you'll run into a bad disk. If you run into a bad disk, it would just burn a different one or find one that will work if you have a big pile of disks and you don't know what to do with them. But that's basically one of the big troubleshooting, is just make sure that you actually have what you need to have to make this thing go. And then just go next. Alright, we just want to install a new copy of Windows. We want to do it there. Alright. And then it goes through and it will start copying all of its files over, collecting all the information that it needs to have for what you're doing. And then this will take a couple of minutes to actually go ahead and do it. The good part is that it just really much so kind of gives you that whole kind of feedback, which is really kind of nice to see. The feedback's a little bit different in Linux versus Windows. Windows, again, was designed to make it really easy to just go ahead and do stuff with. So from there, we just kind of need to wait and see and let it do its thing. So I'm going to pause this off while we wait for Windows to do its bit. Okay, so now we're at the restart phase, so it will restart as it kind of goes through its process. Let it go do its thing. Now as it restarts, it will go ahead and pop the message up, and then you don't want to boot from CD, DVD, because you just did that. You kind of want to let it use its own thing that it just got done building. And then you want to go okay, and then it will go through and it'll start Windows, and now it's coming off your hard drive. So that's going to be part of the process. And you can see it's coming off the hard drive because this little icon down here on the screen and then your lower right hand side is actually flashing. And then it goes ahead and starts Windows, it does its thing, and then it goes and does its updating. And the other processes that it needs to do is it kind of goes through all this, but that's how you tell if it's working off the hard drive. That's the CD-ROM, USB, network, and all the rest of it. And it kind of flops around, it resets the screen a couple of times, and again, it's working off the hard drive that you just built. So that's what we want to see. And then it goes through, completes this installation, and then you're going to have to start finishing up with all the rest of it as it kind of goes on through. So again, this takes a couple minutes. It's probably taken like about 20 minutes now at this point. And again, I'm not on the fastest computer on the face of the planet, so. But the good part is that it's transferred over from the CD-ROM to the hard drive and is actually finishing up and doing its thing. So as long as it's doing the little red, green, lighty thing, we're in pretty good shape. So we'll go ahead and pause it, and as soon as it's done doing this, we'll be good to go.
Now the cool part is that as it completes the installation, you'll see the network letting go. So that means it's actually talking on the network and trying to talk back to whoever it needs to talk back to either verify a license key or to go ahead and download all the updates or everything else. So again, these little lights down here are really handy, especially in dealing with any virtual machine, to see where the activity is actually happening. So between the hard drive and the network, it's kind of handshaking and doing its little bit and all the rest of the processes that it needs to do. Okay, so we're good, and this thing's saying, okay, 32-bit color, virtual mouse, and all the rest of it. And then it goes back and does this little starting Windows thing. So now it's essentially completed the core installation of the files it needs to go ahead and do. And again, you'll start pointing up and mouse pointer integration. You'll get these little pop-ups all the way through as control shifts back and forth between the virtual machine and the host machine that you're running the virtual machine on. So just some terminology, the host is what's running the virtual machine. The guest operating system would be whatever you're doing for your computer. So now we're getting set up for first computer use. And this should take a minute as well. And again, if you ever need to get out of it, of that thing, if you just do the right control button, it will let you out. So just remember that little right control will help you do stuff. Alright, so we want to do Windows Enterprise, your account. So let's do student. Alright, and then we go next. Type of password, so we'll just use password because we don't believe in what we're doing. Alright, a little password hint. You know, let's go ahead and just use the recommended settings. Yeah, I'm in Pacific time, so we'll stick to that. But it's actually really 11, so we can change that around. And we're on a work network, so that will work. If you're at a home network, if you're on your home, you can just click home. I usually choose a work network just because I want to see what all the other things that this thing's going to do when it talks on the network. If you did a private network, it would turn off a lot of stuff. So you kind of want to be able to do that and kind of go from there. And again, just simple Windows 7, it kind of gets you all hooked up and ready to go. And then it should be doing its bit. Again, it's working off the hard drive, so we're in pretty good shape. Kind of doing its thing there. No network activity, but we do show that the cable's connected and that we are hooked into the network and that it is natted. Now remember, if you need to change stuff around, you can do this here. If you need to view what you've got, switch scale mode, adjust window size, machine, you can actually do the settings here. Usually I recommend that you take a snapshot the minute you've got this thing done. If you need to take a screenshot, you can actually do that and it will go, okay, here you go, and you can drop that off onto your desktop and then it will actually bring it up so you can actually do really easy screen captures off your system. So you can kind of see where all this stuff goes. So it makes proving or taking things of what you've got cooking a whole lot easier as you kind of go through it. And again, it kind of does its own thing, but you can actually go through and do all the other things if you don't want the mouse anymore. If you want your session information, you can see how it's going and that, how all this stuff works and all the rest of it, and how it's working with the network and how it's working with the hard drive. If you want to see the details, you can see where all that stuff goes. So again, all that kind of good stuff. And then boom, that's basically it. You're done. You are finished installing your thing. If you want to see if you're connected to the internet, then there you go. You're at MSN. And then we end up with the news. And again, if you really want to use Internet Explorer, you can go ahead and just set it up that way. But you're basically ready to go. That's all there is to installing a virtual machine on using VirtualBox. It's very straightforward. It's not a huge issue. If you run into those errors that we were showing earlier in the video where it wasn't able to boot off of it, then that's basically where you need to go and start swapping out disks until you can find the one that you want to have. And again, you can change how your machine operates. You know, take your snapshot 1 of my Windows 7. Snapshot description, raw Windows 7 install. Good to go. So I've got my snapshot. So it goes through and saves all the machine state and everything else. And again, when you see this and you go back to your account, if you go into your documents, you should actually see, or wherever it goes ahead and drops its virtual machines. So you can go ahead and go from there. If you ever get really confused on where you're at, just remember to go to Dan Morrill. There's my VirtualBox, right? So that's got all my logs and other things that are kept in there. So you're definitely going to want that. And then my VirtualBox VMs, there's my Win7, there's my snapshot. So it has my virtual saved disk image on that, and it's building it. There's all my logs, so we can see what it was doing and how it was doing it. And then there's all my data about how this thing works. Now remember, we said it could use 25 gigs. When it's done building, it's actually only going to use about 5 on a raw install, when you haven't added any software, any components to it yet. If you need to go ahead and do all the other things you want to do with it, if you want to go ahead and do, we've got our shared clipboard. If we want to do our shared folder now, right? Virtual guest add-ons do not appear. If I want to do shared folders, then I need to do the install guest edition from the device menu. So we want to go cancel, devices, install guest add-ons, and that will kind of walk me through so I can do all the other fun things that kind of go along with this. And again, it will pop up and then do its thing. The Windows is going to be doing its thing for a while. It's whenever you're downloading from a disk, there's going to be a number of updates that you had turn on updates. So it's going to be looking for all the things that it can do with it. That's how it is. When you're done, you can go ahead and just close. We power off the machine.
And boom, that's it. We're done. It's all ready to go. And that's it. That's how you install Windows 7 on a VirtualBox.